What's going on YouTube? This is BXBomb718 back at you with another video, and today I'm going to give you an overview, impressions, and thoughts on the Asus ROG Flow Z13. Alright, so standing right here in front of me, I purchased this item for $1,899.99 plus tax from Best Buy. Alright, so if you want to get yourselves a copy of it, you can get it and purchase from Best Buy. All right, and the model I have, I'm gonna read off some of the specifications. Okay, the OS is Windows 11 Home. The processor is a 12th Gen Intel Core i9 12900 or 12900H processor, 2.5 gigahertz base, 24 megabytes of cache, up to 5 gigahertz on turbo boost, 14 cores, and that's divided by 6 performance cores and 8 energy or efficient cores. Okay, the graphics is the Nvidia GeForce RTX 3050 Ti or Ti, and it has a ROG boost of 1085 megahertz at 40 watts, which means it's 1035 megahertz boost clock plus 50 megahertz OC, and that brings it to 1085 megahertz, right, at 40 watts. It typically runs at 35, but it can also draw 5 watts in dynamic boost, right? So it can borrow some power away from the CPU, all right? And it has 4 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM, okay? It also has the integrated, what we would call the Intel Iris Xe graphics, and that's the integrated that it has on there, but the dedicated, or the GGPU, is the Nvidia GeForce RTX 3050 Ti. The display is a 13.4 inch WQUXGA 1920 by 1200 16 by 10 glossy display. It has 85% of the DCI P3, 100% of sRGB, touchscreen, 120 hertz. The response time is 30 milliseconds. It's IPS level, adaptive sync, Pantone validated, and it has a MUX switch and also has Optimus. It also supports Dolby Vision HDR. All right, on board it has 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 onboard memory running at 53 megahertz, and again, it's all soldered onto the board. It has 1 terabyte of M.2 2230 NVMe PCIe 4.0 SSD, which means it's a shorty SSD drive. All right. It also has a backlit chiclet keyboard, which has RGB, and it doubles as a screen cover. Okay. Now it has an 8 megapixel front-facing camera and a 8 megapixel rear camera and a 720p HD camera. All right, this also has Dolby Atmos certifies, AI's no canceling technology, 3 microphone array built in. It also has Wi-Fi 6E. The battery is 56 watts an hour. It's a 4-cell lithium-ion battery, and it's charged by a Type-C 100-watt AC adapter. All right, this also has Aura Sync, and it weighs 2.6 pounds. Okay, now the fingerprint reader, the biometric reader, is baked into the power button on the side, so I'll get in that in a second. Just want to give you a heads up on it. And those are the specifications of the model that you see here right in front of you. Okay, all right, so now with that overview, let's go ahead and take a look a little more in depth of the unit itself. So I'm gonna bring it closer. All right, now as far as heft, it's not that heavy for a laptop, but now for a tablet, anything in this class, it is pretty hefty, right? I don't think there's any way they could have made it even much slimmer without making some sacrifices in cooling or other components, but I mean, it definitely has some weight to it. Again, you know, I'll read off how much it weighs. However, that also includes this soft touch keyboard cover right here, okay? All right, design-wise, now this is CNC milled chassis, so it's very sturdy. I have no issues in regards to rigidity. It is very sturdy. However, the edges are sharp. You know, for a tablet, you want something that's gonna be comfortable, that you can hold in your hand just like this. But in regards to this, man, the edges are sharp. All right, so that's something that definitely can be improved, maybe in the next iteration. But yeah, these edges are cutting into my hand, and that's one thing that I don't like. Another issue I have with the chassis is that in order for you to get the best grip in holding it, you must hold it like this, with the keyboard cover facing out and the CNC anodized chassis facing inward, because you have a good grip with your palm resting on this soft textured cover. right? Because if you hold it like this, your palm goes against this area here, which is very, very smooth and slippery, right? So grip wise, it's best to grip it with the cover facing inward this way. All right. Now, if you remove the cover, gripping it becomes very problematic because it's slippery on both the screen, which is glossy, and on the back. You know, so that's something I think could be improved. I think even though the CNC anodized chassis is pretty cool, practically carrying it, it's not efficient. I mean, they should have made it, to me, maybe put some kind of texture design on it or something to give it grip, but they have not done that. You have this red tab here that assists with this ROG tab that assists with pulling out the kickstand, which is very convenient. You also have a micro SD card slot there right here that slides right into here. And also they allow you to access that 2230 SSD NVMe PCIe 4.0 SSD drive, okay, which I think is convenient. All the RAM is soldered on, so I mean you're stuck with 16 gigs if you get it from Best Buy, but there's other models I think that may have more. So just keep that in mind when you purchase it. Let's see, let's close that up. The hinge for this kickstand is very, very sturdy, but when you get to this angle right here, right, it does a nice little collapse, but it loses its rigidity at this angle, right? It's no longer as rigid. So it's best to keep it out as much as you can to get the rigidity and stability of that kickstand. Now, because the screen is glossy, as you can see, I already smudged it up. It will capture tons of fingerprints. Now, this has been treated on the back to resist fingerprints, so there's no issues with fingerprints going on here. But if you want to use it in tablet mode, again, you have it cutting into your palms here, where after a while the weight and the cutting into your palms is going to be pretty noticeable. It's best that if you have it on your lap, just put the kickstand out like this and just use it with the kickstand out, so you don't have to hold it, because it makes it much more convenient that way instead of just holding it in your hand for long durations as you would an actual tablet. Now also, if I was using it to read, again, it cuts into the edge of my palm, so I think that also because of the weight and how sharp it is on the edges. And again, it's not, you know, gonna cause any scarring or break any skin or anything like that. However, you will feel it after a while cutting into your skin, and it could have been smoothed out on the edges. So holding it like this to read as a book, I wouldn't do it. I will hold with both hands like this to read, but even that, after a while, it would still, the weight of it and the fact that it's cut into your palms will kind of limit how long you read. Maybe that's a good thing, right? So you're not just staring at the screen. All right, now as far as the screen quality itself, I mean, it is phenomenal. I'm gonna turn it on so you guys can see it. The screen quality itself is phenomenal. It's a 16:10 aspect ratio, 1920 by 1200p. So you get that additional vertical pixels that cuts into the bezel at the bottom. As you can see, it still maintains a bezel. Okay, it still has a bezel. It has that built-in biometric reader on the side over here. So you can see here is your power button and biometric reader built into the power button. Here's your volume rocker, right? Here's your USB Type A 2.0 port, and here's your headphone port and a speaker here at the bottom. All right, on the other side, you have here your Type C port. You have right here your Type C port and the PCIe port for connecting the XG Mobile, or you can use the other Type C port for a peripheral or for a dock or whatever, and then you have your speaker, all right? Public of gamers, okay? So I like the attention to detail on the back. So I think that this is neat indoors. If you're taking this somewhere, even if you turn off the RGB, this will still be noticeable and will draw attention. It looks cool, but it's not practical. Now, I don't mind these other etchings in here and this other design. I think that's neat, but I think that they should have given us the option whether or not we wanted this see-through window. I think we could have done without this see-through window, or if there's some way to maybe pull a cover over it, or maybe this part of the lid can cover it or something, I think would be good for people who are like in business scenarios or in school and they just want to be low key. You can't with this screen. Whether it's on or off, you just can't. You know, so it is what it is. So it's purely for gaming. If you're going on the streets, you just want people to know that I'm Team ROG. Okay. All right. Now, as far as venting, I think venting is fine. Now, their claim of 0 decibels under 50 degrees Celsius is on point, meaning that the fans do not turn on. So heat management and dissipation is actually given to the vapor chamber that's built in, which I think is cool. So if you're using it in silent mode, which I would recommend to extend the most battery, maybe cut down the brightness to 50% or lower, turn off the backlit keyboard, or disconnect the keyboard altogether, because the keyboard itself sips some of that battery juice. If you really want to extend it, just use the on-screen keyboard. Keep it under 50% brightness. And then also you want to do the tweaks inside, which is choose the eco mode or optimize mode to shut off the dedicated GPU, which is a 3050 Ti or TI. You also, it keeps it under 2 gigahertz, if I'm not mistaken. I've seen it go as low as 750 megahertz in the Asus ROG Crate software. But that silent mode really tunes it down. It removes some voltage, and it keeps the processor clock very low, but it's still responsive. You know, I haven't had any issues with navigating websites. Now, when I first turned it on, it was weird. I did have some lagginess and all of that, but once I updated the BIOS and once I updated all the drivers, everything ran smooth as butter. So if you get this and you see that it's lagging or whatever, do not return it, right? It needs a BIOS update, and also do a Windows update, and make sure you update all the other drivers that's on here, right? You can go to the Asus website on their support section, look up the Z13 and see what all of those items are, okay? Now, it does have a rear camera, which I thought was better than the front-facing camera. This 8 megapixel rear shooter is actually better than that front-facing camera. I took some pictures with both, some video with both, and this just happens to be much better. I don't know what really to say about that. Maybe if you want to do selfies with this, you can use this right here. This little screen, as you can see, is reflective. Maybe you can use that. I don't know. But that's a pretty good, pretty decent shooter up top. I have no qualms with that, all right? So let's turn it back around, and as you can see, so once we turn it around to the front, as you can still see all of this oily residue from fingerprint and palm marks and all of that. Make sure you keep a microfiber cloth handy to deal with this, because, man, you're definitely going to be wiping this down a lot, all right? So some other things that I have an issue with. Okay, another thing that I have a issue with. Well, let me go with a compliment. First of all, this keyboard, for the thinness, man, has excellent travel, excellent springiness. The touchpad is okay. It clicks from halfway on down, which I don't like that. I prefer it just to be in the corners, because you can accidentally press it or whatever. I haven't done that, but it's clearly possible. And also it looks like it's wearing. And I only had this for maybe a few days, and it already looks, I don't know if you can see it. You can see that circle right there. It looks like it's starting to wear. So I don't know how this is going to hold up after 4 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. I think it's going to start to look unsightly after a while, and that's very concerning. I also saw this on my Lenovo Yoga 6 2-in-1 laptop that I purchased last year. After maybe 6 to 8 months of usage, it just had this wear circle in here where I would use it the most. So be conscious of that, okay? But again, the springiness of the keyboard is great. The keyboard also has one zone RGB, which I think is cool if you're into that. For me, I don't really care about that. I normally keep it off if there's light, and if it's on, I just keep it one lit and one color, and that backlit or that backlight is just simply white. Okay. Now, also, my concern is with this soft cover. It feels like it's going to wear out over time, especially on the back. If you're carrying this a lot, this does attract a lot of lint, and it feels like over time this will definitely wear out. And I would say just be concerned with that. If you're traveling with it, I prefer you travel with it with the keyboard cover on. And again, it's a nice, satisfying click. Whoop, didn't even do it right. A nice, satisfying click. The angle in which it's raised, I think, is cool. Let me go ahead and pull this out. All right, it's raised at an angle, which makes it really good for typing. Laying it flat like this and typing is a very bad experience. I would never recommend that. I would always keep it angled like this and type, okay? Now, as far as performance is great. As far as battery life, the max battery life I got was 5 hours and 15 minutes, and that is with 50% brightness. That's with the keyboard light off, the backlit light off. That's on the silent profile with the DGPU disengage, and I got about 5 hours, 15 minutes. Now, as a tablet, that's not good. As a laptop, that's okay. But the X13 gives me 10 hours. Right now, in a world where the X13 did not exist, I would get the Z13, right? It's an excellent laptop for people who want the express flexibility and portability and to be able to hold the screen without the keyboard. Again, I think it does very well with heat management. If you do work it, it does get kind of hot. I think I've seen attempts up to 86 to 88 degrees Celsius on here. So it does get very warm if you have it on the performance profile plugged in and you're doing gaming, video editing, whatever the case may be. I would shy away from turbo mode because turbo mode is just the heat trade-off and the thermal limits that you hit and the throttling is just not worth it. I would never use turbo mode. I would stick in performance mode and just use whatever wattage it gives me, which I think is maybe up to 85 watts if I'm not mistaken. But if you do turbo mode, it hits the limit about 100, 105 watts, etc. So I would just keep it at 85 watts because performance mode, it can handle the heat. You'll get up to the upper 80s, but it'll help. It will hold the heat down and it does not throttle. I never had it throttle on me, but it did get very warm to almost 90 degrees Celsius, all right? Other than that, again, like I said, I think it's a great laptop. I think that this is for somebody who wants something mobile, something portable. And maybe you're interested in getting the Extreme Mobile to go with it. You know what I'm saying? When you want to have that desktop grade graphics performance married with this i9 processor, and the processor is no slouch, and you'll see in an upcoming video all the benchmarks. So, I mean, I think it's great for that. But in regards to using it purely as a tablet, because the edges are rough and it cuts into your skin, that kind of is a drawback. The weight is still kind of weighty for a tablet. So you got to consider that as well. If you're lifting weights or whatever, maybe you wouldn't mind it, but you definitely will feel it cut into your skin. Make sure you do have the keyboard cover closed. Yes, it's best to grip it that way because if you grip it without the keyboard, it's very slippery because of the glossy screen, and the CNC anodized back also is pretty slippery as well. I think it has a nice retro futuristic design. I'm not a big fan of that window. Over time, it looks cool when you first use it, but practically, it just looks... It looks a bit much. It draws a lot of attention, right? But other than that, I gotta say, you know, in a world where the X13 doesn't exist, I would get this and keep it. But I think that the second iteration of this will be 10 times better. They're gonna reform and fix all of the things that I just said, I'm sure, over time, right? But for right now, this is what we got. So again, there's a lot of highs, there's some lows, but because the X13 exists, I just won't keep this, right? And I prefer the X13, which I think after having the G14, after having this, to me, the X13 comes on top from both devices. You know, that's just my position. And you guys seen the performance benchmark test between those two. And I will run these on this one as well, so you can compare it with the G14 as well as the X13. And again, we're only using performance mode. All right. So with that, hope you guys enjoyed my overview, impressions, and thoughts. Hopefully it didn't sway you either way, but you use my experience to factor into your decision. Again, there may be some things I complain about that you're like and okay with, some things that I like that you disliked. That's solely up to you. But over time, like I said, I just have concerns that this is going to wear out on the palm rest, on the trackpad, and on the underside. All right. So yeah, and that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next video where we're going to go into benchmark tests and put this beast through the paces. All right. Peace.